This podcast is brought to you on Roku and Fire TV by Pod Nation Podcast TV. Find us on X, Facebook, Instagram, or wherever podcasts are broadcast. Download our app and never miss a show with video on demand, as well as exclusive content found only on Pod Nation TV. Live from Seoul, South Korea, it's the Monster Island Film Vault Bonus Episode 16, Space Monster Wangmagwi, featuring Daniel DiManna. Hello, Kaiju Lovers, and welcome to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast seeking entertainment and enlightenment through tokusatsu. I am your host, Monster Island's film curator, Nate Marchand, still touring the world, wrangling escaped kaiju, with my intrepid producer, Jimmy from NASA. As usual, fine, I have acknowledged your existence. Are you happy now? Of course you're not. But we are not here alone for this endeavor. With me today is the self-avowed Korean kaiju connoisseur, Danny Boy DiManna.
Whoa, I do like that alliteration there, Nate. Thanks for the intro. How you doing all the way out here in Seoul, man?
Well, we've been here for a little while. It's been kind of fun. We've had some misadventures here and there. I'll tell you about that a little bit later.
Sounds about par for the course for the MIFV crew, quite frankly.
Yeah, generally speaking. Yeah. It's been a little while. You quickly find out that Korea has a lot more of a kaiju tradition than you thought, mostly because there's a lot more Korean kaiju who got away from the island than I thought.
There are a surprising number of Korean kaiju and or kaiju adjacent critters out there, Mr. Marchand. And as one Skull Island resident in the 70s once said, "Ooh, there's a lot out there." And
yes.
That has nothing to do with this episode. Aha! Yes, quite. I like
that's
that.
A bad habit I picked up from a former nemesis.
That'll happen. Honestly, I've started picking up on it too, just because I listen to your broadcasts so much. It's kind of becoming a thing. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, let's get to the subject at hand, because this was actually an episode that you both demanded to be on.
Yes, and I'm not a very demanding person.
No, you are not. But I think literally within moments of the release of this movie being announced, you were messaging me saying, I demand this be on the show and that I be on the episode.
Now, you got to give me some credit. I didn't say it in as many words. It's not like I showed up and tied you to your couch and said, listen, Marchand, you're going to put me on this episode or else. Like, I didn't do that. I politely demanded. I politely threatened your life. I did not. I was not. I'm a very polite demander of things.
Because you are Danny Demander, right?
Oh! I'm gonna drill my way back home after that. I can't be here anymore. I can't be in this robot with you, Marchand. I can't do this anymore.
I can't do this anymore. No,
I can't do it anymore.
No, I can't do it anymore. But yes, you are here to talk with me about Space Monster Wangmagwi, which saw. I don't even know if international release is even the right word or right term, I should say, for it. It's more like released period by SRS Cinema. It is ridiculous. We'll talk about the story behind this movie because it's arguably better than the movie. Which seems to be a theme with a lot of these Korean kaiju movies. The story around it's more interesting.
Listen, I love a good behind-the-scenes story, and to say that the story behind Wangmagwi is unprecedented and singular in this genre is an understatement. And it's entirely accurate. No hyperbole here, folks. This movie is no joke. This is a big deal. The fact that you have a copy of this in your mobile vault, I must say.
Oh, yeah. I had to get one for the proper vault on the island, too. So
yeah. Well, you know what? That's just more money. You have more than one copy. That's just more money going to SRS, and they deserve it.
Yeah, they certainly do. And you know who else deserves credit for this? Apparently, there have been people who have been aware of this movie's existence before the last couple of years, but I was not aware until I read this book, Kong on Made by John LeMay. Yes, I know. Scratch it off the MIFV bingo card. I name dropped John.
There it is.
How dare you? What? What? Now, you think John is my man crush and not Jet? What the frick are you smoking? Oh, my gosh.
I don't feel like I should be in this robot anymore. Something's cooking in here, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
John, listen, we all have a little man crush on John around here because he's awesome.
Yeah, he is. He is. Yeah.
No,
but
he's great.
Anyway, so John actually was the one reading that book, made me aware of this movie. And when I saw that, I'm like, well, probably never get to see it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people felt that way because what else would they have thought?
Yeah. And then lo and behold, SRS announces, hey, we're releasing this movie. I'm like, you're what?
Yeah, this was absolutely bonkers. So I suppose for the sake of for explaining it to people who might not know, why are we making such a big deal about this movie being on disc?
Let's transition into that. But first, Mr. DiManna, what actually happens in this movie? Tell us what this movie is about. And Jimmy, cue some epic and/or funny music to go along with this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, strap in because I'm not sure how this is going to go. You know what else doesn't know how it's going to go? Space Monster Wangmagwi. Why? Because this movie is a dartboard with a bunch of spaghetti stuck to it in the best way possible. This movie is really a series of things happening, but I will do my best to boil it all down to one cohesive plot. Basically, you've got a planet, Earth, the one we're on. Yeah, that one. Aliens are coming. Yeah, that old story. The aliens are back. Different aliens. And the reason that they're awesome is that they are absolutely wearing shellacked water coolers on their heads. We'll get there. These aliens want our Earth, of course. And they want to conquer it, of course. And, well, what are they going to do? Of course! There it is. There it is. And what are they going to do to take over the planet? Why, naturally, they're going to sick a giant rock Fraggle monster on the planet. You know, they're going to send a Gorg down. Like, they're going to send this big, old, weird, kind of rocky, gremlin-y looking alien creature to destroy South Korea, specifically Seoul. Once it gets here and balloons up to giant size, it starts punching buildings. It starts using a weird fog thing on its forehead to melt stuff. And in the middle of all of this, we have a couple whose wedding got disrupted, and the husband has to go off to fight the monster. The wife is running around like a crazy woman, and then she gets fey-rayed by the monster and carried around for about 98% of the movie's runtime. We have two complete wackadoos that are engaging in a game of wife trading, and then, of course, we have such memorable characters as Roof Umbrella Man, Corner Pooping Man, and last but not least, the Kenniest of all Kennys, the man, the myth, the legend, Screwy Squirrel himself, who climbs inside of the monster and does unmentionable things in his nasal canal. And then the movie ends and the monster dies.
But Tish, I guess.
That's about as good as
it's about as good as we're going to get, yeah. Actually, speaking of that, Jimmy, have you managed to track down whatever the frick Wangmagwi is? Okay, you have located him. Do we need to leave now? Okay, we can finish the broadcast. It should be fine. He's not causing any trouble at the moment.
Well, that's a relief.
That is a relief. It's a good thing that the gamma alien influence has been removed. That's probably why.
I would say so. He kind of seems a little clueless he seems a little clueless with their guidance too. Let's be real.
Yeah, well, the gamma aliens are not the brightest aliens to try to invade Earth. But before we get into the actual movie itself, we need to talk about the crazy background with this movie.
We do,
because it is zany, to say the least. It's absolutely zany. So just to give a little bit of cast and crew on this, because a lot of these they're not names that I know because I'm not Korean. But apparently some of these people were big deals in Korea. It should be noted that this movie actually came out first. This actually came out before Yongary.
2 months earlier. Yeah.
June 27th, 1967, the year of the kaiju.
The Year of the Kaiju. And
Year of the Kaiju.
Was it the 13th of August that Yongary came out?
I believe so.
It was definitely August. I think it's
if he's wrong, Jimmy, put it in your notes.
Yes.
Anyway.
Correct me.
So it was produced by Century Company. So it's not the same studio as Yongary.
No. And
about 50,000 people saw it. So it didn't make as much money as Yongary did. Yongary was the bigger hit.
This is true. It definitely, I mean, even if the film didn't end up kind of quote unquote lost to the annals of history, outside of Korea at least, Yongary would still have emerged as the superior one in terms of the box office, in terms of the cultural impact, all that stuff.
Yeah, I talked with Neil Reeby, our friend Neil Reeby, about this, and he said Yongary is to Korea what Godzilla is to Japan, and Wangmagwi is the Gamera.
That's accurate.
By comparison, which is funny because I feel like Yongary, if you're comparing it to what Japan was producing, Yongary is closer to a Gamera, and I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what that makes this in that regard.
That makes this. Oh gosh, I don't know. It is such a fascinating Gappa. No, it's not even Gappa.
Monster X.
It might be
not Monster X. The X from Outer Space.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that one had even slightly higher pedigree than this one in terms of its production value and a catchy theme song.
Yeah, this is true.
Movie did not have. There was no catchy
No, it did not. It did not. But just like I said, to do a quick rundown, because a lot of these are names that you're not really going to hear elsewhere on the show. So it was directed by, and my apologies in advance if I say the names wrong, it was directed by Kwon Hyuk Jin and written by Ha Young Byeon, and the special effects were by Byung Soo Kim. And our main stars in this film are Nam Kung Won, Seon Kyung Kim, and Sang Cheol Jeon. Excuse me.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Maybe. Probably not.
Probably not. I'm a dirty American. I can't.
Sorry, Korea.
Yeah, I read too. I have way more experience reading Japanese names. Unfortunately, this international season has been reinforcing that for me. So, the title for what it could put together could either mean, well, it literally means Big Monster Wangmagwi, but Wangmagwi apparently means Big Devil or Big Demon.
Or King Devil. It's also been translated as like Devil King.
Yeah.
Which is a cool,
and
Devil King monster. So cool.
Yep. And once again, because I have to reference John all the time, he described this in Kong Unmade as could be more or less considered a Korean take on King Kong with an alien twist.
That's a fair assessment.
Yeah, except the difference here is that the audience isn't supposed to sympathize with the monster.
Yeah, the monster is pretty. He's just kind of a big dumb thing that hits things. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't really have a lot of
smash.
Basically, yeah. It's just he just kind of hits things.
Yeah, and it's considered one of the oldest surviving kaiju and science fiction films from South Korea. So is Yongary, although Yongary has got an asterisk next to it. I find it so astonishing that Yongary has not been well preserved, but this somehow has.
Yes, considering that this movie has only now been seen by the world, Yongary, for people who don't know, the Korean version of Yongary is gone. It's gone.
About half of it.
That's about 45 minutes that exists.
About 44 minutes, that they've been able to salvage. And they're not sure they're ever going to find any more of it.
So if you like, the best existing version that exists is the AIP TV version.
Which is just crazy.
It's weird.
Yeah, it is really weird. I can't think of another example of something like that, where the only surviving complete version of something is a dub.
I know that there are other examples out there. I couldn't name them off the top of my head. There are movies out there that fit that bill. You know what I would love to see? Because you mentioned that this is one of the oldest surviving science fiction films that was made in Korea, and monster films. Predating this one is a movie called Bulgasari.
Bulgasari, which is
not to be confused with the North Korean one that everybody knows, but it's based on the same myth.
Yeah.
It's based on the same folk tale of the metal-eating monster.
Yep.
And that came out in the early 60s before this one did, but that one's gone. Like you said, it is gone. So in
Yeah.
terms of earliest existing giant monster films from South Korea, this is, in terms of what you can get your hands on now, the bookend. Like, this is
Yep.
the beginning of that.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it significant in and of its own, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right there. That's amazing. But that's not what makes this film infamous.
Yeah. No. So after the film's theatrical release in South Korea, it was only ever shown by the Korean Film Archive, and talked a bit about them when it came to Yongary. And you could view it on computers at their library. That was the best you could do. And they would occasionally show it at film festivals. So, for example, it was shown at the 26th Fantasia International Film Festival, and Christopher Stewardson from Our Culture Mag was able to see it, and he gave it 1.5 out of 5 stars.
It was not flattering.
Yeah, saying, quote, "While not a good film, Space Monster Wangmagwi has its moments of weird delight. Its appeal may be elusive to most, but I'm glad it's getting its moment in the sun."
And that's a fair review. And I've read that review. That's a fair review for the most part. I don't think it's a little mean, but it's
but where I think as kaiju fans we're kind of used to that at this point.
Yeah.
So basically nobody ever saw it. I've heard tale that there might have only been one surviving print. Like some people, I think some people say there might have been 3, like the actual master, and then a couple of other ones. I'll see if I'll find that in my notes here eventually. But as far as I knew, the only surviving copy was at the Korean Film Archive, and they kept it to themselves and would just occasionally screen it until 2022 when it was licensed by SRS. And and then its international premiere happened at the Fantasia International Film Festival in Montreal, July 23rd, 2022. And then SRS released it on Blu-ray, and because they're crazy like this, VHS.
Yep, and I bought one because I'm that fan.
Yep, in January 2023.
Yes, and that was an amazing thing. So you mentioned that the first time you'd heard of this film was relatively recently in John's book. The first time I heard about this movie was as a youngster when I was reading Bill Tsutsui's Godzilla on My Mind, which is a book that I recommend. If anybody out there has not read William Tsutsui's Godzilla on My Mind, go find that book and read it. It is absolutely an awesome book. I love that book. And he has an entire section in the book on monster movies from other countries. This was the book that taught me about Reptilicus. I'd never heard of Reptilicus.
Oh, really?
That, and like I'd heard of Yongary.
Reptilicus is coming up.
Yes, it is.
I know you want it, Damon. Finally coming. I hope you're happy.
It's going to be a good time. I love me some Reptilicus.
And we're going to use the Danish version.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, I got to get that.
I only know of one other podcast that ever talked about the Danish version. But anyway, we're moving on.
Anyway, that's where I first heard about it. I don't remember how young I was, but the book mentioned Space Monster Wangmagwi, this lost film, this apparently epic, huge, space.
Oh, we'll get
movie.
to that because there's some contention about that.
Yeah, we'll get to the misinformation later on. But this book was written in 2005, I believe, for Godzilla's 50th anniversary. So some of the information that was available, oh my God, almost 20 years ago. What happened to the time? It hurts. It's been 20 years. We know more about this movie now.
Let the tick in here for a second. I'm just
sorry about that. No, I'll just leave. Anyway, Get out of here, Patrick. Anyway, I can't believe it's been that long, but a lot of information has come to light since, as you do. And that's where I first heard about it. And I've long had a fascination with lost films and just lost media in general.
John is making an entire career out of this now.
Oh, no. I mean, if I'm a fan of lost media, then he's like on he's like way up here, you know. This makes for great radio. I'm holding my hand very high right now.
Yeah, yes.
John's literally written the book on lost kaiju films.
He's on another level. We get it.
He is on another level.
He's several levels up. Yeah,
he is. And
I mean, he is taller than you, so
he is. He could beat John could beat both of us up. You kidding me? He could take us down, but he wouldn't because he has a heart of gold. He might hurt Jimmy.
Yes, he does.
He might hurt Jimmy.
Oh yeah, he might hurt Jimmy because they had a spat.
They do.
Oh, calm down. Anyway.
Come on, man. It's yes, we've done the bit. It's fine. But all that to say that when I say that this movie was, not anymore, but was easily the most sought after, lost kaiju film outside of maybe the Japanese Kong films, but those are confirmed gone. Like those won't ever be found. Sad as it is to say, but in terms of movies that that are out there and they're there and it's like, oh, I know it exists. It's in a vault somewhere. This is the most sought after. This was the most sought after lost kaiju film of all time, and we have it.
And now we have it. Yeah,
it's back home on my shelf. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yes, quite. Anyway, so the story has it. The reason the Korean Film Archive had it and didn't release it was because of copyright. Apparently the copyright holder is a jerk.
Oh boy.
I don't know who the copyright holder is. That I could not find that information for the life of me. I don't know if the studio that made it even still exists. I don't know who the copyright holder is for this thing. But apparently that was the reason why. As far as I know, the Korean Film Archive owns the copyright to this. I don't know. But like I said, no one said who that was.
Yeah, whatever the case, because the exact reason why this film has been under.
Oh yeah, okay, here it is. The Korean Movie Database lists 3 known prints. That's what it is. Yeah, 3
there you
known
go.
Prints. Yeah.
The exact reason why this film became so scarce, even in its own country, is really kind of up in the air. Like, I mean, this movie has become notorious because it became notorious. There's nothing in the movie that's necessarily like a lot of movies that are under lock and key have some kind of story about why they're under lock and key, right?
Yeah, case in point, Half Human and Prophecies of Nostradamus. Like I've done episodes on those, and then the one I haven't done an episode on this show about would be the missing episode of Ultra 7.
Yes. Yeah, and those all have reasons why they're gone, and some of them have even been screened. I mean, Prophecies of Nostradamus showed on TV up through the 80s. You can, just a few years ago, Toho held a public theatrical screening of Half Human. So the movies clearly aren't gone. They exist, but there are clear reasons as to why they were taken away from the public.
To give an American example, Song of the South.
Song of the South is another good example of that. And again, if you dig, it doesn't take a lot of effort to find Song of the South and watch it. It's out there, but Disney's not screening it. That's the big difference. But again, there are reasons why that Disney has put out there as to why they don't promote that film. But
now they put warning labels on everything. But
yeah, I mean, I'm actually kind of surprised it's not. This is a deviation, but I'm surprised it's not on Disney Plus with I would love to see it on Disney Plus with an audio commentary. Talking about some of the contentious elements. It's better than burying it, at least for me. But yeah, I don't know.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
That's neither here nor there. But Wangmagwi doesn't have anything in it like that. There's nothing questionable about it. There's nothing that would it doesn't have any negative depictions of Ainu. Like it doesn't have any kind of atomic bomb imagery, like all the stuff that we would expect within this genre that we've talked about with Nostradamus and Half Human. That stuff isn't in there. There's nothing contentious about it. It's not a video nasty. It wasn't banned.
No,
it's just rare.
It came, it left, and then nobody let it back out.
Yeah, and that built up a mystique around it. Because now when you can't get it, now you want to see it. Now you want to know, is the appeal of trying to find a movie like that becomes less, I wonder if this movie is 5 out of 5 stars. It doesn't become about that. It becomes about the thrill of the hunt, right? It becomes, this movie is so rare and only 8 people have ever seen it that are still alive. It's only being screened in one place ever. And then it's under lock and key. And you don't want to, you want to see it for that reason. You want to see it because you can't see it.
Yeah,
not because it might be some kind of hidden gem,
masterpiece
of a movie,
or something,
masterpiece, and so there are two different kind of sides to a story when it comes to Wangmagwi, because you have the fascinating backstory about how it ended up the way it did, and then you have the actual objective quality of the film itself, which we'll touch on as
we'll
we
get to that. Yeah, but we got to get we got to get the story behind
the
it.
Story is amazing. The story
yeah, it
is
is.
amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
So here's the funny thing: despite being under lock and key, did you know you can actually get toys for this movie?
Yes, you can.
In 2008, a Korean graphic designer by the name of, and again, apologies if I say the name wrong, Hong Ji-hun made a series of vinyl toys based on Wangmagwi.
Yep.
And he said he was able to do it because he got to go to one of those rare screenings at the archive.
That is so cool.
I bet those toys cost a pretty penny.
Oh, dear God. I mean, look up some of the older Pulgasari toys based on the North Korean film, some of the Sofubi and soft vinyls. There aren't a lot of them, but if you dig, you can find them. And whoo, boy, they are expensive, which is why I was relieved when Mondo put theirs out a couple of years ago, because they were a lot more affordable. I would love to see somebody like a Mondo or, hey, maybe our pals at Titanic Creations.
There you go, guys. Hey, there you go, guys. A Wangmagwi.
Do it. Let's do it. I mean, who knows what the rights
would
be like for that.
Well, I'll save it for when we talk about the movie, but this monster design is
goofy.
Odd.
I love him. I love him. He's great.
But here's the funny thing. 15 seconds of this movie actually was on the internet until 2023 when it got released.
Yep, that's all.
I don't know what 15 seconds it was, but it was apparently recorded off a TV. So I'd like to know the context for that. What is the source of this?
I believe it was recorded off of one of the little computers.
That might be it.
Yeah, and that's all they could get their hands on was just 15 seconds.
Yeah, but I wonder if there's another thing. This was actually theorized as a possible reason, another possible reason why the movie didn't get was basically buried, archived for forever and a day after its short run in the theater, and that was because freaking Far East Entertainment, Kyung, it was a Kyukdong Entertainment.
Kyukdong.
Yeah. They tried to sue Century Company over this movie because it said it was too much like Yongary, which makes no freaking sense because these movies have hardly anything in common.
I don't know, man. There are some weird similarities that I picked up on.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the beginning of the movie is a couple who...
true. I'll give you that. Yeah, I did actually, now that I think about my notes when I was watching the movie, again, it's the second time I've seen it. I did make note of that, but we'll get to that. I guess maybe I can kind of say, but it's very superficial and it didn't really go anywhere. But some people wondered if maybe they were like, we're not going to release it because we don't want the lawsuit to come back.
That's entirely possible. A lot of things have had... There have been a lot of instances like that are very similar. The one that comes to my mind is I can't remember the name of the piece of music involved or the specific shorts.
Oh yeah, here it is. 3 prints: the master print, 35 millimeter, and the negatives. There you
go. But back in the 1940s, Warner Brothers released a Bugs Bunny cartoon of him playing a specific concerto on the piano, and then I think it was right after that, MGM released a Tom and Jerry short with Tom playing the same piece of music on the piano, and they were developed completely independently of each other, but they each pointed their fingers at each other and yelled plagiarism, and they were never able to prove it. It was just a case of weird coincidental overlapping of
parallel
ideas
development. I think is that
parallel
what it is?
development. Same
parallel
thing,
development. Yeah,
it's the same. It's like the Kimba versus Lion King thing.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, we're not going to get into that. That's
a little bit of a mess there. But Kevin Derendorf also, he had another interesting theory. He also wonders if it also may have been put under lock and key because of quote unquote stolen stock footage, because that was a common practice in Korean films at the time.
There is, and what lends credence to that is there is some military stock footage in this film, and if you look at the fuselage of the airplane, it's reversed. The text on the side of the airplane is reversed, which means that either they flipped it so that it would, I don't know. I was watching the scene when I rewatched the film, and I was looking at those reversed shots, and I thought, are they trying to imply that Did they flip it because they wanted it to look like the airplanes were coming from a certain direction? But then none of the succeeding shots supported that. They could have flown from any direction. It would have been fine. Or were they trying to disguise the footage by flipping it? Were they trying to be clever?
Yeah, the I listened to the commentary on this, and they mentioned the name of it, but I don't remember what it was. But they said that the jet fighter footage was from a documentary.
Yes.
So it's not like public domain
stock footage,
government and military footage like you would see in a lot of 50s films from the United States, or to use a Japanese example, but Americanized would be the dub version of Rodan.
Mm-hmm.
Because the dub version of Rodan starts with government stock footage of a nuclear test. Yeah, it's not the Japanese version, but that was okay because they
paid for it. The King brothers paid for that footage. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they went and they like, you can go buy stock footage. To this day, you can go buy that stock footage if you really want to. It's still out there. You can still buy footage of lizards ripping the crap out of each other from 1 million BC if you want to. That footage still exists. So you can still, I think that's public domain now. So you don't have to pay for it,
you can make your lizard snuff film. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yikes. But
I mean, I'm going to be honest. Oh, what was it? I feel like I'm trying to remember what it was. Maybe it was Yongary. I don't remember. I recently watched a kaiju movie where they used real footage from an aquarium of fish fighting with each other. I'm trying to remember what movie that was, because the commentary actually made a joke about it being a fish snuff film.
This was a Japanese film?
I don't remember. I don't think it was Japanese.
Jimmy, you're going to have to find this for Nate.
Yeah, you're going to have to. Okay, you get right on that.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember I know it was something I saw recently, but anyway. So before we get, I think it's something else that should be noted, because we're going to talk about it, because this really threw me off when we were watching it. But Wangmagwi wanders the city aimlessly, despite the fact that he technically has a purpose. And he encounters Korean comedians and TV personalities, which that threw me off, and we'll talk about that when we get there.
Oh, yeah.
But there is one other notorious, I guess you could say, thing that made this movie noteworthy when you couldn't see it, and that it supposedly held a world record. And that's why everyone's like, I have to see it because I have to see the world record. And supposedly. And the crazy thing is that I still got conflicting information when I did the research. Even on the materials provided on the Blu-ray, there was still some disagreement here. But in 1980, the book Movie Facts and Feats, a Guinness record book, claimed that this movie had 157,000 extras, which made it the highest of any movie. And I will confess, when I watched it, knowing that, I'm like, where in the frick is this? I'm waiting for, where is this 10 Commandments scene going on here? But here's the thing.
When does this movie go full DeMille?
That's what I'm thinking, because I don't even think Cecil B. DeMille had that many in the 10 Commandments. I mean, he had thousands of extras, but not that many.
Yeah.
So apparently the Guinness Book of World Records, quote, determined that the film featured more extras than any other film, excluding the 1982 film Gandhi, which had 300,000.
That was the record breaker.
Was the record breaker. Here's the thing. I found another source, and weirdly enough, I think it was IMDb, so I'd love to know who wrote this, but he claims that that's a misconception.
Well, that's not. Well, it is absolutely not true that Wangmagwi held that record.
Because although the number he gives here was 167,000. Yes,
his number is a little.
But he said throughout the whole film, so I'm like, that was my thought. I was like, is it just that there were that many over the course of the movie? Because there is a surprising amount of extras in this movie. I will have to say that. I don't know who Century Company is, but they threw some money at this thing. I couldn't find a budget for it. I don't know how much this cost to make, but the number of extras is impressive. There were Japanese kaiju films that didn't have this many extras.
Yeah. But 100,000, even 100,000 extras. No stinking way.
Yeah, but here's the crazy thing. So the number, 157,000, 167,000, this guy claims that the actual record holder at the time that this movie came out still exceeded the supposed number that it had. And it was in 1945, but maybe nobody wants to talk about it because he says it was a German Nazi movie.
It was a Nazi-produced German film, yeah.
From 1945 called Burning Hearts that had 187,000.
It's a mess is the thing. So I mean, if Burning Hearts really did have that many people, then even if Wangmagwi did by some miracle have 157 to 167,000 human beings in it, which it don't, then it still wouldn't hold the world record. So this movie having any kind of world record is triple, if I may borrow a phrase from Mythbusters, triple busted. Myth busted,
Yeah.
yo. It never was. And besides, Gandhi kicked all their butts anyway in 82.
Yeah,
Gandhi,
well, which was admittedly 2 years later after this book was published.
Yeah, but still, I mean, so that's a misnomer.
I want to know if it's still the record holder.
I don't know for sure. I mean, because within 20 years of Gandhi, people were just animating crowd scenes, you know?
Apparently, I'm looking at the Guinness World Records website right now. Gandhi is still the record holder.
Wow. Thank goodness Uber Mogura gets good Wi-Fi.
Yes. Jimmy made sure that there was good Wi-Fi in here, but especially when I told him, like, if you're going to put a mobile studio in this and we're going to be using it for the better part of a year, you better make sure it's got all the amenities and make sure you foot the bill to the board. Anyway.
For sure. They did try to shoot me. I'm still a little sore about that.
Yeah, which I don't blame you for that.
Yeah.
You might I know a really good lawyer. He can
You've mentioned that.
You can get some money for that. Anyway.
I might have to.
Yeah, anyway. So there's all of that. The same guy on IMDb said he thinks that because the film was acknowledged by Guinness as a contender, that's where the myth got started. But having seen it, I don't know where that comes in. Like I said, there's a lot of extras in this, but I have a hard time counting 157,000.
You know what?
Isn't that the population of Seoul?
I am not above freeze framing this movie and meticulously counting every human in it. I'm not above that. I will do it. I will do it. I would absolutely do that. It would drive me insane, but I would do that. I mean,
okay, I was wrong. The population of Seoul is 9.776 million, but anyway.
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say, there's no way that the population of
that's like an entire suburban neighborhood or something. And
yeah, they got a decent chunk of the country, and also their population.
I mean, good lord, good lord, I used to live in a city where that would be half of its population. A little more than half of its population. That's just crazy.
Just to give it the benefit of the doubt, we are talking about a 50-plus-year-old movie. Population would have been lower back then.
True.
But not that low.
Not that low.
No.
It's just, that is just crazy. But anyway, the last part of the story is how in the heck did SRS get this? Well, Ron Bonk and his friend Gianmarco, I should have gotten Tom Gianmarco wrote a couple little essays explaining that. It's kind of exciting, but also kind of boring all at the same time.
Oh, not to me. I read that riveted. When I
yeah.
It's
not the most. I'm just saying it's not the most exciting thing, but Ron said that he got requests for it from patrons after he released the Rego Raiga movies, which yes, they're on the list.
They better be.
On the list.
They're awesome. They better be.
All three of the Hayashiya movies are on the list.
Do it.
Anyway, there might end up being more at this rate before I get to him because he's still making more. I think there's one about ninjas, like Ninja Kaiju. How the heck do you have Ninja Kaiju? Anyway, he thought all the prints were gone, but then he heard that KOFA, Korean Film Archives, were screening it. Got a hold of Avery Guerrera of Sci-Fi Japan, who put him in contact with his friend Tom Gianmarco to contact KOFA and the rights holder. Again, nobody tells me who the rights holder is. Those requests were rejected because they said something about, and I quote, not wanting SRS or any USA company to distribute their movie at all, ever. End quote.
Wow.
Dang.
Yeah.
But Bonk was determined. I have to admire the man's tenacity. Was determined to get it by talking directly to the rights holder. So he emailed Kofa, but the email bounced back. But eventually he got a working address, emailed him again, no response. Then he had an interpreter translate his email into Korean. Then he got a response in English. That's the most confusing part of this whole thing. I don't understand this. So it's like, we won't talk to you unless you talk to us in Korean, and then we will talk to you in English. I'm like,
whatever
guys.
Works. Whatever gets me a copy of Wangmagwi on VHS on my shelf.
Yeah. Then Mr. Bonk spent a year emailing back and forth like this. Because he said, they basically said they would never respond unless the email was actually in Korean. It's crazy. He was trying to get he didn't say which one it was. He said he was negotiating for another film while this was all going on. And then they settled on a price. And then the email came back and asked Bonk if he still wanted Wangmagwi. So because he thought he was talking to him about another movie. And then he freaked out. He was like, wait, what?
No
what? And then he said it was this to me was the most interesting part of it, because I'm like, how the heck did they send it to you? They actually mailed it to him on a hard drive, like an actual hard drive, and they mailed it to him. And he said that when he got it, he was being very ginger with it. He's like, oh my gosh, I have it. He was just freaking out, and I can understand why. I mean, it's precious cargo, and you want to make sure trust me, I've dealt with it enough, and I've talked with Jimmy enough about it. Technology is fickle.
This is true. And
it's
when
very, very sensitive.
When you're holding the grail, you don't fumble the ball. I'm just saying.
You do not.
And this is a grail. If you're into this stuff, this film was then a lot and still is. It's a grail.
Yeah, I think Ron has actually gone on record as saying it's the biggest acquisition he's ever had.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not in terms of like,
although he did just announce a couple other ones that are up there. But...
Yeah, I mean, not in terms of expenses, surely, but definitely in terms of cultural significance and oh my gosh, what the heck factor? How did you do this?
Yeah,
the cultural cachet of getting this film released cannot be overstated. It can't.
No. Now, Mr. Gianmarco, he had a few things to say. But his part of the story in this, which is he grew up watching kaiju films and he was fascinated with Korean movies and as an adult. And then I think he actually moved over to Korea, discovered Wangmagwi while rummaging through old newspapers while he was doing research. And he noted that this was unique because he said most movies in Korea at the time were melodramas. Although the same year, and now SRS has released this too, their first animated movie, Hong Gil-dong, was also released this year. And he caught a screening of it at the Film Archive, which he said happened a couple times a year, and he wrote a review about it, and that's how Avery Guerrera found out about it and found out about him, and then he put Ron in contact with the right people and made the whole thing happen. So
it's amazing. It's amazing.
That is the wild serpentine twisting and turning story of Wangmagwi.
The weird and wild world of Wangmagwi.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Wow, that's is now Wangmagwi's hanging out with Batwoman. Is that how this works?
Yeah, I could have said the wild world of Wangmagwi.
I would have been less impressed with that actually, but
yeah, I liked mine more. The less association with that particular Batwoman movie, the better. If you know out there, if you know.
Yeah. You okay there?
No, I'm good. It's just I'm allergic to that Batwoman movie. unless three very specific people are watching it in the corner with me, if you catch my drift.
Yes, quite. You are bringing out the worst in me. What are you doing?
Who, me? That's an incredibly rude thing to say, pal.
Yeah, it's just all the yes quites. I don't know where they're coming from, but that's what I'm talking about. But anyway, now, I mean, I don't know. Could you make a movie about the story of this movie? I mean, we got that with Nezra in 1964.
I'd like to see it because we don't know what really happened on the set of this film. It might have been the smoothest production in the world. They might have gotten the monster suit might have come out just how they wanted it. The guy might have pooped in the corner exactly as they intended it. We'll get there. The umbrella man might have jumped in exactly the way that they wanted to. Like, this could have been somebody's vision.
I was thinking more like a movie about someone trying to find this thing. Like, it went missing, and then someone is obsessed with trying to find it, and then like the whole story of it going missing, and then finally someone getting it.
I'd like to see
there you go, 3Y.
Do it.
Make a docudrama about a fictionalized version of Ron trying to find this movie.
You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see, again, completely fictionalized. It's not about Wangmagwi, but it's like Godzilla Half-Century War, and it's 50 years of this film archivist's life where he's a child and he hears about it, and then he's an old man and he finally gets the film canister. Like, it's just, and he's narrating it like, I spent my whole life trying to find this thing, and it like transitions through his whole existence. I'm gonna write that story.
There you go.
Don't steal it, anybody.
Yeah,
yes.
Quite. Anyway, so we had all of this excitement, all of this, but what about the actual movie itself?
Now
it doesn't live up to the hype and the legend and everything else. I hate to break it to you, no, it doesn't.
Ouch. See,
I don't know what it is with these Korean movies, these Korean kaiju movies. But so far, it seems like the story around it is more interesting than the movie itself. Now, I will admit, I was warmer to it the second time I watched it. The first time, I didn't know what to do with myself because things happen in this movie where I'm like, what is going on?
There are things that happen in this movie that can never be unseen. So I think in its own very, very, very weird way, in its own very, very, very unique way, it does live up. Now, anybody who went into this thing expecting it to be like a lost masterpiece was setting themselves up for disappointment. It was not going to be that. But I think that it's weird enough and fascinating enough and just like weirdly entertaining enough.
Oh, it's entertaining. It's certainly entertaining, but just
I mean, yeah.
We'll get to it, but we'll get there. But just looking over my notes, just kind of perusing my notes, well, maybe this will be one of those rare times where we kind of go in order here. But
I think that's best.
Yeah.
Guide.
So the credits looked a little bit rough, and I was scared that the whole movie was going to look like that, but thankfully it didn't.
The credits looked fine to me. The thing was they were going by really fast.
They were going by really fast. I'm just like, it was the grainiest part of the movie is what I'm talking about.
But the rest, I know what you mean, but like the rest of the movie looked stunning.
I was surprised how good it looked, I have to admit.
Amazing. There were a couple of weird artifacts. There was one very clear film rip that they had to deal with. There were a couple of moments where there was kind of almost like a weird psychedelic series of concentric circles emanating from the middle of the
screen. But it was only ever on certain shots, which it was when Wangmagwi was on a miniature set and it's really bright outside.
Yes. So
I don't know. It's like, what is that? The lens or something? You can tell
it looks digital to me, but I can't be certain.
Yeah, but you can certainly tell that the Japanese crew didn't help a Century Company. They were helping Far East with Yongary because these effects do not look nearly as polished, because that was an advantage Yongary had. There were Japanese crew. Toei went over there and helped them make this movie. Because we talk about the year of the kaiju, because every studio in Japan released a kaiju movie. And then it actually occurred to me, it's just like, but wait a minute, what about Toei? Oh, Toei helped with Yongary. That was their release. That was their kaiju release for the year. So we had lots of kaiju. Korea had 2, Japan had 5, because Toho made 2.
The genre was popping that year. That was the peak
it
of
was like
boom,
it was like superheroes have been in the United States for a while, but But I bring that up because once the effects start kicking in, you have to start adjusting your expectations.
So that's
just a little bit.
That's my secret. I never go into movies with expectations.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, if you go into it thinking you're either going to get 1960s dye.
No. You have to
Because
go into this
I was
film.
not expecting Toho. I was definitely not expecting Toho, but I'm like, maybe dye. No, because the alien spaceship looks like a horizontal candle.
You know, I noticed a couple of found objects used in the prop making of this film, and I'll highlight them as we go.
Yeah.
But I can guarantee you that UFO was made out of found objects.
I'm sure it was.
I can almost guarantee it was.
Yeah.
I love when movies do that.
I love your description of the alien suits, because I remember the first time I was watching this, the alien suits came on. I'm like, oh my! Like, as soon as I saw the alien suits, I'm like, I know what movie I'm in now.
This is
I
know.
I know what kind of movie I'm in now. And I'm surprised you didn't bring a certain thing up when describing those suits, because it gave me these vibes immediately. I saw those suits and I'm like, the robot monster energy is strong in this one.
The robot monster energy is strong. No. It reminded me,
or Santa Claus Conquers the Martian.
It gave me some Roman vibes. It gave me some Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. It made me think a little bit of Invasion of the Neptune Men, which is Japanese.
Our costumes are ridiculous.
Oh my gosh,
that's the line I remember best from that MST3K episode.
That's a good one. That was one that almost drove them insane, because that's a whole other thing.
That was a Prince of Space movie, wasn't it?
Prince of Space was the first one that they did, and then the second one was two different Japanese serials, kind of like
because I was like, I'm pretty sure that was a sequel or something. But anyway,
no, they weren't.
Invasion of the Neptune Man. It gave you that energy.
It gave me those vibes, but first time I saw this movie, I couldn't not see the jug handle where the face should be. Like, it looked like the guy was wearing a milk carton. And I thought, well, okay, where's the hole if it's a milk carton? Well, obviously, like, if that's really what they did, then they obviously like paper mache'd over it and spray painted it. It really does look like they cut holes into like a water cooler. There's a handle on it. Like, that's what it looks like. I can't.
Maybe that's how they carry the helmets.
Maybe that's how. There you go.
Right, I'm gonna know. I'll no prize it. I'll be.
Yeah. I don't see. Again, I'm saying this. I have.
You don't give out the no prizes, sir.
Come on, Jimmy. Come on. No, I have no proof that those were actually water jugs, but they looked like water jugs. I'm just saying, they really did. And if you look throughout the film, you can see more found objects being used, and I love that stuff.
Right. I also love the fact, and I don't know if this was, I'd love to know who did the subtitles for this, but because it's some of the subtitles are a little odd, but weird. I love how the gamma aliens, they're the gamma aliens.
Yes.
Gamma aliens who apparently live in water coolers. I love how they use both. This is a weird nitpick that only a nerd like me is going to notice, but I love how they use both meters and miles when calculating distance. Like, you guys are very diverse, but it must be very confusing. Don't you hate having to convert those all the time? Come on, guys. Pick a lane.
That's funny. That is really, really funny. I liked how they subtitled him going, ha 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 ha, which, like, yeah, we could translate that part on our own. We didn't need a ha ha on the subtitles.
Yeah, we can take care of that ourselves. Yeah, that's pretty, laughter is pretty universal. But speaking of the dialogue, and is it just me, or does the whole movie seem like, not just the alien scenes, like the alien scenes, I didn't really think about this, but once we get to the rest of the cast, it seems like it's all ADR, and it seems weird.
It's very possible that it was dubbed over. I mean, Japanese television shows at the time were shot silently. All of Ultraman is dubbed over. Fun fact for anybody who didn't know. Yeah, Ultraman, all the dialogue you hear in the original Ultraman and Ultra Q, and I believe also in Ultra 7. Don't quote me on that, but I believe also in Ultra 7. Just television shows.
There's your job. There's something for you, Jimmy. Check
that. They
one.
were dubbed over later. They were ADR'd later on. So you won't hear any on-set dialogue in those TV shows. And it seems possible that that's what we were hearing here. There were a couple of sound sync issues with the film. The monster smacking into buildings and the crunching sound would happen a second and a half later. So it might have been a timing thing that was throwing off the dialogue a little bit, but it did sound like it was recorded in a studio later on.
Yeah, for sure. It's
possible.
because it sounded too clean.
Yeah, especially the one character. I won't get there. I won't do it yet.
Yeah. But
you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. We're
the best character in the movie.
Well,
nah, he's the best. Come on, we'll get there.
I don't know.
I
would be one to tell you that the bride is the best character.
Well, I mean,
because because the first time I watched the movie, so I was like, okay, we got aliens with the monster, fine. They have water coolers on their heads, but I can work with this.
Or if you're like,
and then we get introduced, to the bride, and then I actually do have written here in my notes. It is a similarity to Yongary, but in Yongary, the couple just got married, and their honeymoon gets ruined by Korean Kenny.
But other than that, it's almost identical, right down.
Yeah, but in this one, the wedding gets crashed by a kaiju. Don't you hate it when your wedding gets crashed by a kaiju?
Listen, if I had a nickel for every time my wedding has been crashed by a kaiju, whatever,
you wouldn't be able to get anything out of a vending machine.
No. I hate when that happens. It's never happened to me, but I hate when that happens. But it really is close to Yongary, right? Like,
but like in Yongary, the groom husband, whatever, is a pilot and he gets called away. But in Yongary, it's like, oh, we're gonna ruin your honeymoon. In this one, we're gonna ruin your wedding. I really felt for the poor bride. I wish I could remember her name offhand, but I really felt for her. Like as soon as they established this, first off, the first time we see them, they are straight up making out while radio news is going on, and I'm like, wow, there's more kissing in the first 5 minutes of this movie than in most of the Godzilla series put together. Until you get to 2014, but anyway.
They were necking. They were doing some
it was full bore, and I'm like, oh my, and oh my guys. Anyway, oh my. But then then they established that they're just about to get married. I felt so sorry for her.
She sold it.
So sorry for her because and then she's like, I'm going to go through with the wedding anyway. I'm just going to do it, Mom. I'm going to do it. And it should be noted, this is interesting. Her mother wears traditional Korean clothing. She is wearing Western style clothing, which the commentator, and I think the commentator occasionally gives this movie a little more credit than it deserves, but he did point out some interesting things. He said that was much like Godzilla 54, I would say, showing a Korea in transition, because they were modernizing as well at this point, and the younger people were dressing more like Westerners, but she's of the older generation, so she's more traditional. So I thought, okay, that's an interesting thing to point out. I give him credit there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I got very attached to her, and I thought she was going to be the thing, like the through line throughout the whole movie. And to their credit, for about the first 25 minutes, like, it is very focused, other than cutting over to the aliens, it's very focused on her and all the characters who are around her. So like the groom, her fiance, and all that. I'm like, okay, I'm working with this. And then suddenly about 5 other subplots find their way into this movie.
The subplots, March in. The subplots. I mentioned that this movie...
the subplots.
The subplots. No, I mentioned that this movie was a dartboard with spaghetti stuck to it, because it really does feel like they had... This movie completely changes its tone at a certain point. Well, maybe not just the tone, but the direction changes. It starts becoming very splintered and frenetic and more, not episodic, but very just jumping from scene to scene, different people's perspectives. It becomes a little unfocused, not in a bad way, but it stops becoming about two people, a bride to be and a groom to be, trying to get back to each other, and one trying to get to the other and one trying to save the other. That just kind of stops about 20 minutes in, 25 minutes in.
25 or so.
Yeah.
And 28.
28. You had a pen while you were watching this. Yeah. Nice. You were ready. Once the monster shows up, because, okay, well, I guess we can kind of get there. So the monster shows up, some shenanigans ensue,
Well, we
And
see him in the ship and he's small, and then they say basically Earth's environment will make it huge, and they talk about atmospheric pressure and things. I was like, okay,
the monster does start
that's
out,
a little more explanation than we usually get, but sure, okay, fine, we'll work with it. But
the monster starts out as person sized, like that's
basically, and poor Wangmagwi does not look happy, which is weird. But I think it sounds like that the atmosphere, its exposure to Earth atmosphere, also makes it angry.
Well,
okay,
I tell you what, I've lived in Earth's atmosphere, and that checks out.
It makes you angry. Does it? It makes you larger and angrier.
Makes me angrier.
Okay.
I mean, I have gradually been getting taller as I've gotten older. I mean, does that count? Probably not.
Yeah.
I'm also not. I'm not a particularly tall or angry person. I'm like the least angry person.
But speaking of that, I would also like to point out that apparently the leader of the Gamma Aliens is a podcaster, because that is as podcaster looking a mic as I've ever seen.
Oh yeah. That guy. You can tell that if this movie was made today, he'd have, like, if he landed on Earth, he would have a big Twitch following. I mean, like, he'd be all over that. He'd be Jughead, you know?
Water cooler man.
Water cooler man. Yes, exactly.
But what does he play on Twitch?
Space Monster Wangmagwi, the video game. Naturally.
I guess, you know,
his life. Well,
but it's basically, it's like a sim game. He doesn't actually control the monster. He just says, "You go do this."
I feel like
it might go do that.
I feel like he'd be really into retro platformers. I could see him busting out a GameCube and firing up Tak and the Power of Juju. That's what he would do. For the 3 people that know what I'm talking about, you're real ones.
Yeah.
But
also, it should be noted that this movie's in black and white.
Yes, it is.
This is 1960. Not very many movies were still in black and white in 1967, which I don't know if that contributed to the fact that Yongary did better, because Yongary was in color.
I would imagine so. I mean, the last major Japanese kaiju film in black and white was Gamera in 1965. Yeah, this was 2 years after that. So, you know,
and Daiei was doing that to save money.
And I imagine that might have also been why this film was shot in black and white too.
Probably, but I will admit it. You know, it actually might work better in black and white. If this was in color, I like
the black and white. I like it. It almost made it feel like a kind of we'll say medically assisted episode of Ultra Q. That's what it felt like. It felt a little Ultra Q-y, just not as polished and with more drugs involved. You know,
probably.
Yeah,
but
medically assisted.
It should be noted that this movie wears its influences on its sleeve, unlike, well, really any of its contemporaries, because it name drops King Kong several times.
It is not shy.
So it's like, in case you don't know.
Monster carrying girl around. Yep, there it is.
No, I mean, like, the characters literally say, oh my gosh, it's like King Kong.
Yeah, no, they go for it. Just in case you didn't get hit that the monster carrying the girl around was enough of an homage. Also, here, I don't know if you caught this, but when the monster is heading toward the planet, there's a shot of 2 men looking up in the sky, and they point at the light because they think it's a goblin, which that's exactly the scene from the original Gamera where the old man sees him and thinks that it's a spirit in the sky, or the subtitles say will-o'-the-wisp.
Yeah. But unlike Daiei, they didn't have the money to make anything.
No, they just kind of
look at that, and we never see it.
No, you don't ever. You have to use your imagination.
Yeah, which, I mean, the commentator said, well, that makes it mysterious and kind of scary. I'm like, or they didn't have money. Anyway,
I'm with him. I'll take it. I know why they didn't do it, but I'll take the atmosphere that it built. I will accept that. That's cool. I'm down.
Yeah, and I noted here, it's like, I admire the couple's determination to get married in spite of, like, well, they said, oh, there's going to be a typhoon, and then they're like, oh, there's a monster, and they're like, we're getting married.
All the guests are fleeing. The hairdresser flees. The priest
they don't care. They're like, we're getting married.
I am not leaving this building until I am married.
It was at a church, I think, too, and she's wearing a wedding dress, I might add, too, which adds to the fact that she's trying to be young and hip and cool and be more like a Western woman.
Subtext, man. Subtext.
Yeah. And she's like, I'm getting married, dang it. I'm giving everybody this, get married. Like, I was rooting for this couple so much, especially the bride. I was so invested in the bride.
Yeah.
I was weirdly invested in the bride.
I know. She was so sad. She was so.
And then Wangmagwi shows up and literally crashes the wedding.
Literally.
And grabs her.
Because
trope.
Because trope, okay?
Yeah,
Monsters
because the plot and
away.
the trope demand it. And I'm thinking, like, you could easily explain this. You could just have it be that the alien said, you grab the Earth woman so you can have a hostage and no one will shoot you.
Yeah, but he just grabs her. You know,
and he doesn't crush the mom because the mom and the bride were running together. And he leans down to grab them, and his hand goes over both of them. Somehow he only gets the bride, and the mom is none the worse for wear.
No, she's fine. She has a little bit of something smudged on her cheek. We see her later in the movie running around trying to get help and doesn't really go anywhere, but she does survive, and the monster does not kill her.
Yep.
Oh,
and
man,
then, like I said, that's about 28 minutes into the movie, and then Korean Abbott and Costello show up.
Oh my gosh, the dynamic duo themselves. Okay, so
yeah. Now the funny thing was the commentator compared them to another comedy duo. I'm trying to remember. Was it
Martin and Lewis? Wasn't Martin and Lewis?
I almost said Simon and Garfunkel, but I'm like, no, that's not right. That's not right, Nate.
No, that is incorrect, sir.
That they were a musical duo. Laurel and Hardy. That's what he said. Laurel and Hardy.
They're kinda. So these two absolute tools, these two goobers, show up in the movie.
They're gamblers. Like, the joke is that they're gamblers and they're betting on everything. Like, they are so addicted to gambling that they're like, I'm going to bet you that the monster's going to attack this. And what are we going to bet? How about your wife?
I'll just take your wife. Yeah, it is weird. It is. And it comes out of nowhere. This is the point where the movie changes. There have been some elements of like, you know, a couple of like funnier moments, but they haven't been overtly funny. But at this point, the movie starts becoming like a quirky comedy, and you got these two like silly dudes. They kind of reminded me of the two villagers from Gamera versus Gauss that were always kind of like getting into trouble. But these two guys are full on, like, they had a good rapport. You could tell that these guys were like, they knew their stuff. They were comedians.
Yeah. They were both comedy actors or TV hosts, according to the commentator. One guy was in 400 movies in 30 years, and the other one, like I said, was known for being a TV host.
They had some serious, really good comedy chops.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they weren't good at it, but
no, they
were good at it. But I'm like, this is a different movie now. What just happened? I keep thinking of there is a scene kind of like this in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, but it was a television show. So it worked in universe because the whole idea was like, it's these two guys who are doing, they were supposed to be comedic hosts of a television show, and they do a bit of their shtick, and then they finish their shtick in maybe 30 seconds. And then they say, oh, and we have special guests on today, the Mothra fairies.
As you do. And
then you interview them. So, and they also talk to the kids. They're like, who do you want to see? And it's like, we want to see Mothra. You know, so there's plot relevance there. Yeah. I don't know what these guys are. The commentator argued that they're meant to be a foil to the groom, because the groom, the pilot, is this model of masculinity. He's trying to defend and save his woman and his nation. You know, because he's a fighter pilot and he's trying to stop the invaders, because invasion stories are always about a country or culture dealing with its anxieties, which is definitely true. We've talked about this in previous episodes. And he argued that Wangmagwi is supposed to be North Korea. And there's imagery in this that harkens back to the Korean War, much like Godzilla 54 harkens back to World War II. And I'm like, okay. Because he said the bride is supposed to be a symbol of the stolen nation. I'm like, oh, good Lord, dude.
I like reading into things too much as the next guy. But that's an interesting read.
Yeah, because he's saying, like, these guys are the foil because they're cowards, they're greedy. One guy, instead of defending his woman, his wife, he's using her as collateral for a bet. And then there's a scene later where the house is crumbling around them. They go to the guy's house and they meet his wife, and the house is crumbling around them while Wangmagwi is rampaging. And it turns into this really felt like an Abbott and Costello sketch where it's turning into who gets the wife now, and even the wife's getting in on this because she's like, it's like, no, I will not be your new wife. And then then the house starts collapsing. And she's like, new husband, save me.
That's my favorite.
That was admittedly really funny.
That's my favorite.
It's a different movie.
Cracked me up because she's like, no, I'm not, like, no, you're not my husband, get off of me. And then the house starts to come in and she says, save me, new husband. And then first time I saw that, I laughed out loud. I thought that was genuinely good timing. And she's holding on to the guy for dear life. He runs, and then she has to hold someone, so she grabs her actual husband and says,
she's like, old husband, what?
You're my husband again, come hold me, come protect me. It was legitimately funny. It was a legitimately funny moment.
It was because of the turn of events and the whole thing. So, but again, I'm like, this is a different movie.
It is a completely different film, and it sets the tone for how the rest of the human side of the plot happens. Because I mentioned them in kind of in joking and passing as we went through, but as the story goes on, because pretty much the rest of the movie is Wangmagwi swatting at buildings and people running, and then it becomes little vignette stories of people running away and doing things. There's a guy who jumps off a building with an umbrella.
I wasn't sure what to make of that. I was just like, is that supposed to be funny? A social commentary? Did the guy actually think the umbrella would save him? That he was going to Mary Poppins his way down there?
Was it a placebo? Like, did he survive the fall?
What? Well, the commentator pointed out that this movie shows very little kindness to the upper class, to the wealthy.
No, probably the best example of that, and I joked about it earlier, but there is something serious to be made, even though what I'm about to say is upsetting on multiple levels.
This was one of several moments that I didn't know what to do with this movie.
I'm gonna go there. Hide your children. It's not that bad. I'm kidding. But there's a scene in the bunker of this building.
This is an entire plot point.
He comes back later. Like, it's ridiculous. There's a guy running around the basement of... I'm going to try to get through this with a straight face. He's running around the basement trying to find a newspaper in the middle of this crowded bunker.
Jimmy is cracking up here. He's trying
Jimmy, you got to hold it together, man. I'm going to try to get... If you laugh, I'm going to laugh too. Come on. I got to do this. Okay. He finds his newspaper and he's pushing around. He's clearly doing the potty dance. When he grabs that paper, you know what's about to go down, and you're thinking, oh, no. Oh, this movie is not going to go there. And then the movie goes there. He finds a little corner. He puts his paper down. He drops trow. He squats, and then you see his face as things progress southward. You don't see anything happen.
And then just to make it even weirder,
oh boy,
because this movie decided to have the weirdest example of parallelism ever. There's another guy where people are scrambling to get on a truck. Okay, because we're not doing Abbott and Costello anymore. We're trying to be terrifying now, but still a little funny, I guess. There's a guy who's trying to get on a truck so they can get out of the city and evacuate while Wangmagwi is rampaging, and he gets his pants pulled down because people are desperately trying to get on the truck. And he's wearing a nice suit to indicate to everybody he's an upper class guy.
Yep.
But that's not the weirdest example of parallelism. Guess who else in this basement is not having a great time? A pregnant woman. She goes into labor. Don't you hate it when you go into a labor during a kaiju attack? There's a compelling story right there. Like, that's a movie. That's a short story right there. Woman goes into labor during kaiju attack.
I got one better for you. Woman goes into labor during kaiju attack across the room from Corner Pooping Man. Like, it's the same location.
Yeah, that's what ends up happening. Because, like, there's, like, this whole thing where I think it was the bride's mom was like, give her privacy. And they're, like, trying that because they have to deliver the baby. They can't get around it. Yeah. So that's all happening while this guy is taking a dump. And I'm like, I don't like the equivocation here, guys.
There's something incredibly weird about there being a woman giving birth to
the
a human
commentator
life
said
in the
it's
corner.
a bunch of people in pants down situations. That's what he called.
It's very weird. You got the woman who's giving birth to another life over in this corner, and then on the other corner you've got the poop man. And the poop man, and then of course the payoff for the poop man is that when the monster punches the building after he has finished his number two,
his duty,
his duty, he's done his duty, if you know what I mean.
He falls in the duty.
He falls in the duty because of the rocking of the building, and he has this look on his face that very clearly reads, "I have nothing to wipe with, and I am now stuck."
Oh, okay. I thought what you were gonna say is, "Oh, Jet."
No. I've already said the word poop one too many times, including in this sentence. I'm not going there.
That was one of the sequences where I'm like, what am I watching? Like, I was looking over at Jimmy and I was like, dude, what am I watching?
What did Jimmy say?
We were getting ready to go on the world tour, and I'm like, what am I watching?
This movie, man, I tell you what. And then
but that's not even that's
the poop man had a it's weird. I don't like the poop. I can't get over the poop man. I can't get over the poop man. It's weird.
Yeah, you bet your wife.
This movie and the puns. All
right, because it's in my notes, let's talk a little bit about the monster design with this. I don't have anything against the suit itself. The suit looks pretty well constructed. I will give it that. I am a little less impressed with the actual monster design. I don't know who designed this thing. Yongary was designed by a Japanese artist, and the suit was manufactured in Japan. I don't know who designed this thing, but someone needed to tell him that a large, angry simian with giant bared teeth, the menace factor is severely diminished if his tongue is hanging out constantly like a panting dog. I was also confused because I'm like, is Wangmagwi a cyborg, a robot? Especially when you get to a later part of this movie, I really don't know what Wangmagwi is. But yeah, the panting dog look it's not helping you.
You know what it reminded me of? There were a couple, especially in the face. This monster reminded me a lot of a Paul Blaisdell monster from the 50s. For anybody who doesn't recognize that name, he was the monster suit creator behind a lot of AIP's science fiction films. He made the Saucer Men from Invasion of the Saucer Men. He made It from It Conquered the World. He made the she creature. He made the Beast with a Million Eyes, little slave guy. He made a lot of the most iconic 50s, like the creepy mutant guy from Day the World Ended, stuff like that. Like, you have seen these creatures. I promise you have. But probably his most famous creature, one of his most famous creatures, is the titular It of Not It Conquered the World. I got that wrong. It, the
There's
Terror
a lot
from Beyond
of
Space.
It movies.
I
will tell you, the scientists here on the island have been trying to study the It monster, and they're not sure what it is because it can come from anywhere and it can be anything. And there have been multiple forms of it over the years. It's been an octopus, a killer clown, various space monsters. They're not sure what to do with it.
Yeah. Well, the it specifically I refer to here is the It from It, the Terror from Beyond Space, which is mostly known nowadays for kind of sort of inspiring Alien, maybe. But
That and the Thing,
yeah. But this movie it's a really fun movie. Definitely go watch it. But in the film, you've got this guy in a kind of a lizardy looking creature suit, and he's got a big old jaw with a tongue sticking out, just like Wangmagwi does. The trivia behind that being that that's not originally what the suit looked like. It was not designed to fit the person inside, who was Ray Crash Corrigan, who was in a bunch of gorilla suits back in the day. And when they put him in this suit, the head blew up like a basketball. It was originally a very thin latex mask. They put this mask on him, and his head just was huge. And it gave this creature this huge bulbous head, and his chin stuck out of the mouth of the monster suit. So Paul Blaisdell decided to make lemonade out of lemons, and he painted Ray Corrigan's chin to look like a tongue. So now the monster has a tongue coming out of its mouth. And That's how he got the
Yeah,
movie.
they don't have this excuse.
No, they don't have this excuse.
That is
That's
just
what it
a
looked
tongue.
like.
But like, when I look at I'm looking at the cover here. It's not a picture of the actual creature. I'm looking at the artist rendering on the SRS disc,
Yes.
and maybe it's because of that ridiculous number of tusks on his bottom jaw that he can't keep his mouth shut and keep the tongue inside. I don't know. Also, the cover copy on this thing muddies the waters a little bit because they needed that alliteration that bad, because it says a malignant mastodon on a maelstrom of madness.
I love it.
I love it too, but I'm like, wait, he's a mastodon now? I thought he was an ape.
No, because wasn't Hedorah called a mastodon of destruction in the trailer for Godzilla versus the Smog Monster? Can Godzilla defeat this mastodon of destruction? It's just like shorthand for something big.
Basically, I guess. I would have thought that in that case, I would have thought mammoth would have been better.
Well, that's where they came up with mastodon, because people get mammoths and mastodons. Because
you can use mammoth as a generic term for just something large. I never hear mastodon used that way,
because it technically shouldn't be used that way.
Because I'm either thinking of a hairy elephant or a Power Ranger Zord that may or may not have 6 legs. I don't know. And
wait a minute. Was it Hedorah or was it Ebera in the sea monster?
Both of them make no sense.
Mastodon of destruction. What trailer was that? I can't remember which trailer it was.
Jimmy, look it up. Anyway,
whatever.
You can figure it out later. Tell Jimmy, and he'll put it in his blog. That's the important thing. But yeah, it's not the worst suit or the worst kaiju design I've seen, but it's one of the weirder ones.
It's weird. It's also very simple, but it's the parts of it that aren't simple are what make it weird.
And then he has the control box on his back, which becomes a thing later. And so say what you want about the suit. I'm a little less forgiving I take it back. Some of the miniatures are great.
Some of them are really solid.
Some of them are incredibly impressive because they decided for one thing, they did build a pretty large miniature set for some shots, and some of the buildings are actually huge and well detailed. The rest of them are made of paper mache.
Oh man, that's just cruelty. Cruelty, I tell you. Paper mache. You should be ashamed, Marchand. No, not cardboard. I have my entire life I've put up with cardboard building jokes. I'm tired of it. I'm tired. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, well, anyway, what's your opinion of the miniatures in this?
I love the miniatures. Even the ones that are of the slightly more chintzier variety are still, it's just fun. This movie kind of has a sandbox feel to it. It kind of
a little bit, especially because, like I said, there are some shots that are clearly filmed in broad daylight with natural. I'm pretty sure that's natural sky.
Some of it,
which is actually one of the things. Fight me if you want, people, Ultra fans. It's one of the reasons I actually like Ultraman Powered, because that is very natural, bright blue California sky there on those miniature sets. That is a strength. You can't fake that sky.
That is a strength of Ultimate Hero. That absolutely is a strength, and it's a strength here. I love the miniatures in this, and again, the sillier ones are still endearing. There's a real charm to this movie in the miniatures and in the monster suit. I like the design of the monster a lot. Again, it's very simple, but I had that moment while I was watching it rewatching it in preparation for this broadcast. Just that first moment where Wangmagwi comes over the hill and he just kind of beats the tar out of the side of a hill and then keeps walking. I had a moment sitting watching this scene going, this is just what I live for. Like, just scenes of people in rubber suits, just walking over roads, hitting things, knocking over mountains, just doing their thing, walking slowly, sometimes roaring like Gorgo. I swear he roared like Gorgo once. I swear he did.
Wangmagwi does not strike me as the brightest of monsters. I don't know if that's because of exposure to Earth atmosphere or not. He seemed pretty scared on the on the Gamma alien ship, but I'm not sure. But apparently he's very, very angry. His personality is not unlike one of my bosses, who always talks about his octopoidal fury.
My octopoidal fury.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Just like that.
just like that. But since we're speaking of the miniatures, one of the more noteworthy things that Wangmagwi destroys is the Independence Gate, which was built in the 19th century to commemorate independence from China. Now, the interesting thing is China, unlike Japan, never directly ruled Korea, but they exerted a lot of influence, and there came a point where Korea said enough of that.
Yeah, they were done.
So they were done, and that's what this was commemorating. And it was also a sign of Korea modernizing. And the really ironic part is this building was not designed by a Korean. It was designed by a Swiss guy.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's probably, like I said, that's probably the most noteworthy thing that he destroys in this.
Yeah, it kind of looks like the Arc de Triomphe a little bit.
Yeah, it does. And then there's also one that this one's just confusing. But there's a point where Wangmagwi destroys an expo sign and it says 1990.
I noticed that.
And I don't know if that means that the movie takes place at 1990 or if it's just wishful thinking, because it's kind of like how Yongary presents a very idealized South Korea. Their economy was in shambles at that point. They were changing governments as often as parents change diapers or poop man, I guess. But
he could have used a diaper, actually.
Yeah, he could have used a diaper. Ugh. But their country was a bit of a mess, and so I don't know if they're saying like, oh, we're gonna be so cool in 23 years, we're gonna host an expo.
Maybe.
So it's like they were being very presumptive and saying like, yeah, we're making the sign way ahead of time or something. I don't know.
Maybe they had some like development going on in that part of the city, and they're like, we'll have this entire area renovated and looking beautiful by 1990. And then I almost said Yongary, Wangmagwi just destroys it all, including the sign, which was definitely balsa wood. It sounded like balsa.
It did, yeah. Well, that's something else that should be noted. And this is why I say that Yongary benefited from having Japanese technicians, because the Japanese technicians knew how to shoot this footage.
Yes.
And Century Company, not quite, because Wangmagwi doesn't do as well at communicating mass in this. And I think the balsa wood, as you pointed out, is a big part of that, because it doesn't quite have the weight that it should, because the way they would do it in Japan was they would film it at a higher frame rate and slow it down, and that created the illusion of size. Yeah, they didn't do that here.
No, he just kind of walks slowly. There was a little bit of camera trickery going on here and there, but nothing to the extent of what Japan was doing. There are a lot of scenes of the monster just kind of on the set walking, and he's just walking really slow. And if you look at the miniature plants, they're just wiggling in the breeze really, really fast, because in real life, they're like 1.5 inches tall.
Yep.
Like they're not trees in real life. They're little plants. And if the wind is going, those little things are going to blow. So there you go. And the monster will the power lines were jiggling very, very fast, especially when he walked. Again, that's why I mentioned sandbox. It feels a little bit like a kid playing with his toys, which is why there's something very earnest about it. Like it feels like a crew of people that liked monster movies got together and made one. That's kind of what it feels like. It had a little bit behind it. It was not a backyard movie, but it was definitely
which is typically what SRS releases.
True.
I will say, in my tier list, because yes, like Elijah, I have developed a tier list for SRS Kaiju movies. Wangmagwi is nowhere close to the bottom, because I've seen some of the rest of the stuff that they've released, and oh my, it's not even, I wouldn't even say it's the worst Korean kaiju movie. Yeah, but then there are some other weird things that go on with this, since we're talking about that. Honestly, probably the most preposterous thing that happens in this movie is somehow he never drops the bride.
No,
and never crushes her accidentally in his hand, even though the whole idea is that it's like, I got the woman in this hand and I'm smashing things with the other hand, and sometimes I will switch.
Yeah, he just kind of switches sometimes, and then he'll pick up building chunks with both hands and throw it, or he'll punch buildings with both hands. Where
Good
did
Lord,
she go?
that poor bride, she was in therapy for years at this point.
Physical therapy, because her bones were probably crushed.
That was the most preposterous thing in the whole thing. I'm like, how? She
also very clearly changed sizes a lot, because the scaling in this movie doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't. Well, and scaling doesn't exist for another reason that we'll get into. But the other thing that's weird is Wangmagwi apparently at one point, this only happens once, Wangmagwi apparently at one point remembered that he had a human hostage and decided, I'm going to be Kong 76 before Kong 76.
Boy.
And he starts staring at the bride's, admittedly, comparatively, because he's gigantic. I don't mean this like how it's going to sound, but I mean like because he's massive. And subtly, he's staring at what are comparatively two very tiny boobs.
Oh, dear.
And I'm like, wait, boy. when did that happen? When
are
did
the aliens
suddenly become part of your motivation? Are
the aliens doing this? Like, how much of this is the monster and how much of this are pervy aliens?
There's somebody's pervy here. I'm not sure who's the pervy one, but somebody's pervy here.
Somebody is definitely pervy here, but who is it? The monster just kind of doing it? Is his monkey brain kicking in? Oh, pretty girl. That is exactly what he would sound like too. Like, there's no way.
Probably he's not. He's like I said. He's not a bright monster. He's not a bright monster. Also, I have to say, whoever was subtitling this came up with one of the better names for military hardware that I've heard in a long time. Because wow, murder mines.
Listen. That's gold. I don't care what anyone says.
No, it's gold. I love it. I'm like, murder mines. Please tell me that's a thing. Please tell me the Korean military has hardware that they call murder mines.
Oh, I would love that. Oh, that would be amazing.
Look that up, because I have to know.
And if it doesn't exist,
like, is it a very specific kind of landmine?
And if it doesn't exist, Jimmy, you know what you need to do. I'm sure you have the Copyright Office's phone number on speed dial. Of course you do. I never doubted you. I never doubted you, Jimbo. I never doubted you.
You're the only one who can get away with calling him that, by the way.
I wear that as a badge of honor. I do.
Now, okay, something else in my notes related to the effects. Credit has to be given to this movie for building the life-size hand prop.
The life-size hand prop is good. It's one of several life-sized body parts of the monster. We'll get there. Yes. But the hand is good. The hand is really good. It kind of jiggles unnaturally in a few scenes. It's very clear that there are no bones in it. But it is a nice giant hand. I always like movies with giant monster hands in them. King Kong, the Daimajin movies have a really cool giant articulated hand in them. I love that interaction.
And the military also has a weapon that they call the kill beam.
That might be better than the mines.
Murder mines and kill beam.
They're nothing if not very direct and specific about.
And a ray rocket, which sounds like the name of a pulp hero.
You know what I think? That might be something that sounds better in Korean, and when it's translated here, it's just very literal. That's probably what that is.
Kill beam, murder mines, ray rocket. Actually, those are probably weapons used by Ray Rocket.
Yes. Ray Rocket sounds
Rocket at his kill beam and his murder mines.
Ray Rocket sounds like a pulp serial hero.
That's what I said. Yeah, he sounds like a pulp space hero.
That's what he does. Welcome to the ongoing story of
You
Ray.
hung out with him?
Wait a minute.
Of course you did.
Naturally. Why would I doubt it? Why would I doubt it at this point? Why would I doubt it?
How is he not as famous as all the rest of them? Long story. Sure. Tell me later.
Memoirs.
Oh, you don't want to talk about it. Of course you don't.
Well, who's surprised? Raise your hand. No hands going up.
Yeah, whatever at this point. But okay, we're dancing around it.
I think
we got to get to it. Jimmy, cross the podcast streams, my friend.
Rantmaster activated.
No! Why? Why?
Squirrel, king of the Kennys.
I'm just gonna let you go.
I'm just you can participate. I'm just like, it's Squirrel, king of the Kennys. I was not prepared for this character. I did not know there would be a Kenny in this movie, but this kid, any of you who are listening to this, if you don't like the Kenny trope, if you don't watch Showa Gamera movies because you don't want to deal with Kennys, you no longer have an excuse. Okay, I work with one of the Kennys. He told me that when he has meetings with his fellow Kennys, they're like, we look at this kid and it's like, tone it down. Tone it down, man. Squirrel, this street urchin, this orphan. I give him credit. He's more proactive than most Kennys, than most of the Gamera Kennys, I should specifically say. But if you don't like kids who are smarter than adults, this kid is going to just... He's not just smarter than the adults, he is possibly delusional.
Possibly?
He's possibly I said Toshiro. Is it Toshiro or Toshio?
Toshio.
Is it Toshio? I said Toshio. I was on record saying Toshio is a psychopath. The original Kenny.
No. This kid makes Toshio look like Sigmund Freud. He makes him look like...
How did I write it in my notes? I called him cocky, Machiavellian, and delusional. Because the kid, he's a street urchin. He's an orphan. He raids the bride's house while the monster attack is going on. Like, that's our introduction to him. He's raiding the house. Okay? He should be hanging out with, like, the Korean Dodger. Okay? He's probably friends with Oliver Twist or something. Okay? I have to make literary references. Okay? Don't judge me. I see your judgment over there, Jimmy. I do not approve.
That's not judgment. He's just scared of Rantmaster.
And okay, I said you don't like a kid. You don't like the Kennys because they're smarter than the kids magically. This kid hates adults. He makes disparaging comments about adults the entire movie. He says they're cowards or they don't get it. And I'm like, where do you get off saying that, sir? And he has a little knife and he calls it his sword. What the frick?
Obviously never talked to a real child before in your life.
Oh no, I've talked to a real child. I'm like, I'm not, that's fine. I'm like, you want to call your knife your sword? Sure. I get it. Then the kid, because he says adults are cowards, and he just spontaneously decides, I'm gonna kill the monster.
And then
he actually tries to do it. Like he gears up a little. He has like a pail that dangles off of his back, and he gets his knife and he gets on top, climbs on a building, and he tries to go after Wangmagwi. And he gets a little scared. Okay, he gets a little scared at first, but then he's like, and then he starts stabbing the monster in the hand, and then he pulls a Shadow of the freaking Colossus. And he climbs the freaking monster. The entire time I'm watching this, I'm like, what the frick is even going on right now? Like the whole time, I'm like, what is happening?
He scales Mount Wangmagwi.
Then the scaling goes completely. You're talking about scaling. Because the scaling goes completely out the window because he climbs to the monster's eardrum, which apparently is now suddenly large enough to house an entire human child.
When the girl could barely fit in his hand.
And to their credit, he's a child. He's smaller than a Korean woman. So I could fudge around there. Maybe a child can go in, but not an adult.
Maybe that ear canal looked rather big. Okay, I need to stop
spacious
this here for a second, because we are talking about a scene in a movie a real scene in a real movie that exists.
Oh no, yeah, we're not even at the crazy part yet.
No,
like, if you thought a child
this is
scaling a monster and getting into the ear canal, if you thought that was crazy enough, this movie says hold my I don't what's a Korean alcohol? I don't know. Hold my Korean beer. Anyway,
whatever. I hope everybody who's listening is sitting down because this is about to get nutty.
Yeah.
Folks.
Sit down, people. Sit down. I remember we talked with our mutual friend Robert Montserrat, who hadn't seen this movie yet, and we're like, King of the Kennys. He's like, he's like, no, King of the Kennys. No. You don't understand, sir.
I could not believe what I was watching. This is the
Kenniest Kenny who ever Kennied, and we're about to get where he Kennied the most. Subtly, that sounds like a very strange euphemism for something.
Well, considering what happens next, it might be appropriate.
So he gets in the ear canal, and he's like, oh my gosh, got the ear canal. I'm gonna slay the dragon. And then he starts stabbing the inside of the eardrum.
And he slits it open.
And no, like he's the wall, like the wall of the ear canal. He starts stabbing it, and Wangmagwi's like, "What are you doing? It doesn't feel good. I'm gonna stick my finger in the ear. What's going on?" And then he goes and finds the actual eardrum, and he ruptures it. He takes a knife and he cuts it open. It's clearly somebody's blanket, but it's like
a sheet of muslin. Like, he just kind of
cuts it open, and he's like, I made him deaf.
he deafens the monster in one ear, and then
theoretically he is now in Wangmagwi's head, and Wangmagwi appropriately has an empty head. There's nothing in there, and that's like, is he a robot? Why is his head hollow? I don't understand. Does he have the what's the name of the scientist from the US version of King Kong versus Godzilla who talked about Godzilla having a tiny brain?
Dr. Johnson.
Yes, he has this guy. Apparently, Wangmagwi, if we're being generous, has a Dr. Johnson brain. Okay, it's the Dr. Johnson theory brain. Okay, the brain the size of a walnut somehow, because there's nothing there. It is empty space. It is air. And then he goes over to the other eardrum and he cuts that one open. And now he's like, I made him deaf, and now I'm gonna make him blind.
Oh, but sir, you forgot about the part.
No, now I'm building up to this. So he's doing all of these shenanigans that even the other Kennys are like, what are you doing? And then we come to the piece de resistance. I mean, this kid's going to do some other crazy things after this, but nothing compares to this. And what gets to me, Danny.
Yes, that's me.
In all the special features, during the commentary, all of the research material I read on this, nobody talks about what he does in this moment.
Because nobody can believe
the commentator completely skips over it. Like, it happens and he says nothing. It is not even acknowledged. And I'm like, why are you skipping? Tell the people.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to apologize if my family's listening to this episode. If any of my employers, past, present, future, are listening to this episode, I'm sorry. If my future wife is listening to this episode, if my dog that I don't have yet, my future dog is listening, I apologize for what I'm about to say. This child, after having hacked and slashed his way through one eardrum, and right around the time he almost falls out of his nose and uses Wangmagwi's nose hairs to pull himself back into the nose Indiana Jones style, at a certain point...
the nose prop was impressive.
It was very impressive. A lot of the giant nose hair was impressive.
That was impressive too.
But
gross, but impressive.
But that's
so the child nearly became a kaiju booger.
He's almost.
Can't believe I just uttered that sentence.
No, this kid is a little booger. Are you kidding me? He is. So this.
Oh, shut up, Jimmy. Anyway.
Come on, Jimmy. Okay. So this child, the king of the Kennys child, the king of the Kennys, standing in the middle of a monster's noggin, says the following words: "I know what I have to do now." At which point, he pops a squat, and with a disturbingly satisfied look of relief and malice on his face, pees inside the kaiju's head.
That was the moment. I'm like,
he just takes the whiz into the kaiju. in the head of the.
I think I'm trying to think back to how I reacted to that the first time I watched this movie. Do you remember what happened, Jimmy? Because I'm having a little trouble here. I think I paused it to process what I just saw.
I couldn't. Okay.
Because I looked, I was like, Jimmy, seriously, if you talk to this kid and he's like, yeah, we don't like him.
Because my next question was going to be, Jimmy, do you have your thumb on the pulse of the Kenny culture? Do you know this kid? Do you know this kid? You do know this kid. Okay. Can you tell us, is he still doing weird, horrible P-related things? Of course, you'd rather not talk about it. Okay.
Of course, you'd rather not talk about it. Yeah.
That's fine. You know what? Honestly.
But he did become a professional adventurer. Why am I not surprised?
That's fair, but I don't want to know what he does to his fines. That sounds a little he marking his territory? I don't know.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, his name is Squirrel.
Screwy Squirrel. That's his name.
Screwy Squirrel. According to the commentator, squirrels are symbolic of basically feistiness and cleverness in Korea. That's why the kid is named that. And I know. You reminded me of this before we went on the air, Jimmy. I have to issue a retraction because as I've been promoting this episode in the lead up, I said his name was Spider, King of the Kennys. Because somebody wrote Wikipedia wrong.
Well, I mean, you can't really blame him. The movie only just became available, but
yeah,
Spider.
But they said his name was Spider.
What do they think this is? Johnny Sacco? Oh, references for people who get Johnny Sacco. Anyway, yeah,
his name is not it. I know.
His name is not Spider. His name is Squirrel.
His name is Squirrel. Not to be confused with Squirrel Girl.
No, that is different. That is not the same.
Very different.
No.
Very, very different. But this child wrecked me.
This
first time I watched it.
The first time I watched the movie, the minute this kid showed up, like wiping his nose and his dirty face in a rich person's home, my first thought was, Nate is gonna have fun with this movie. And then he started doing things like puncturing eardrums and taking whizzes and monster skulls, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is. I don't know if I can let Nate watch this film. I don't know if I'm gonna.
Because it is so bonkers. Like it reaches a very different level of bonkers with this. And the crazy thing is, he becomes our our third protagonist.
Yes.
Korean Abbott and Costello, they just show up and do some comedy routines. This kid is a main character who shows up like 40 minutes into the movie.
He is more proactive than any other character in the movie, though. He deserves it. As weird as it is, he succeeds in deafening the monster, and then, later on, he scales down the back of the monster and messes up his battery pack his control pack on his spine.
Yeah.
Which definitely had...
he spelunks down. I'm not surprised this kid grew up to be an adventurer, because that's...
Yeah, he does some spelunking. He does a little bit of spelunking. He does some Indiana Jones nose hair stuff going on as well.
Yeah. And then just to prove to you that this kid, much like Toshio, is a psychopath, eventually he does end up getting caught. After all of his shenanigans, he gets caught by Wangmagwi, who puts him in his hand with the bride.
Apparently, you can escape a nose, you can escape an ear, but you cannot escape his hand. That is the rule. I tell you, this kid, man, Squirrel is off his nut. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, but this is why I say he's freaking psycho. The bride asks him, asks him literally, "You think this is a game?" His response, "Yeah."
Without a shred of guilt over what he has done,
or irony,
no sense of no. This kid is the destroyer of worlds, and he is out to destroy. He is out for blood. This kid,
and remarkably, he got none of that. All of his stabbing and slashing and peeing, he drew not an ounce of blood.
There is no.
Why do you
blood.
think I wonder if Wangmagwi's a robot?
I don't know, but he's a robot with muslin eardrums and a little bit of pee rattling around in his skull. Kind of like when you go swimming and you get water stuck in your ear.
Oh God. Oh God. And then here's the other crazy thing. The bride immediately kind of goes into like big sister or mom mode. She's trying to keep him safe so he won't fall out of his hand, out of the monster's hand. And she's like, I'm just trying to keep you safe. And his response is typical adult. So much ire in that line. And I'm like, child.
We don't really know where this child comes from, though. He's clearly like a street child. He's homeless.
He's an urchin. Yeah,
he's an urchin. Yeah. He's got the Oliver Twist thing going on. He's just kind of doing his thing. He's just filthy. His clothing's all ripped up. I mean, he's a mess. And she kind of swoops in and moms him a little bit and protects him.
But he doesn't appreciate it. It's like, how dare you?
Yeah, he's
how
not
dare you? And then he gets upset because when you get to the end of the movie and the military is trying to come after Wangmagwi again, he gets mad. He's like, I bet they only came for her. They didn't come for me. And I'm like, child! One, she's prettier than you, but...
well, that's no excuse. Well, who hurt you,
no, I said, it's like, she's prettier and less annoying.
I didn't see her stabbing any monster in the eardrum.
I know. I mean, I give him credit. Like he is absolutely ridiculous. He is like one of those child adventurer characters that you see in some children's books and everything, cranked to about 15. It's just like seriously, the canniest Kenny you ever Kenny. There were no the only Kennys I can think of, not you, Jimmy, although you and Masal were pretty proactive with during the virus invasion. I have to say that. But the only Kennys I could think of who came anywhere close to this level of feats were the frickin' kids who went inside a Gamera in a submarine. I'm not sure even that quite competes with this, even though they did kill a baby Jiger.
They killed a baby Jiger. They were charmingly precocious. This kid is just a psycho. Like this kid has some real serial killer potential. I'm glad that the movie ends the way it does, because his life would have ended up pretty rotten if what happened didn't happen. And
right. I do think at the end of the movie, this is why I say I was more forgiving of it the second time, because I was like, okay, I know what I'm getting into. I can anticipate the madness and I can deal with the madness. And then when we get to the end, and I do think there is a scene after, we'll talk about the actual, well, it's more like an anticlimax, but we'll talk about the end of the movie when the bride and her soon-to-be husband are meeting with him, and they basically adopt him, which I'm like, why do you want to adopt the psycho child? But the weird thing is that she said she basically she considered him to be a little brother. So it's not like they're adopting a son. So it's more like supposed to be like a little brother. Like, okay, that's a little strange, but okay. I think I can roll with that, but you get the impression that that's actually what he wants. And then maybe the fact that he acts the way he does, he's a little psycho because he's not had a parent for a long, long time. He has basically been surviving on his own and maybe thinks, oh, I could do this on my own. Adults don't want to help me. And so screw adults. I will go kill the monster myself because the adults won't do it. That sort of, he's got that boyish bravado that has been completely untempered. And now he's actually in a situation where he can have a family again. And he realizes that's all what he's always wanted. So now the bravado is dropping and he's, yeah, sure.
It's sweet.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a sweet little ending where he gets a family, and I don't know. I thought it was cute. I don't know. I'm a softie, but it is a nice little ending, and the film literally closes out with soon-to-be husband and wife walking along a Planet of the Apes beach, and that is what it looked like. And
it did.
The little boy skipping in the water next to them, happy, genuinely happy that he has a place to go for the first time maybe in his whole life. And it has nothing to do with anything, but it's incredibly cute, and
right.
It's a sweet.
like I said, watching the movie again, I'm like, okay, it's not that the character doesn't make sense. It's just cranked to preposterous levels. That's what
he's a cartoon. He's a cartoon.
He's a cartoon. Yeah, he's a cartoon. Because I have a hard time believing any child can just, what is going on? I mean, like
freaking Tarzan, man. Like,
I'm just saying, like, Gamera is like, what the heck, kid?
Yeah, I was gonna say, even Gamera would be like, chill, little dude. Like, it's shake a chill pill. Switch decaf, Kenny. Like, come on now. But
calm down, Squirrely. It's just
even after all of that, he helps, but he's not the one that ultimately defeats the monster.
No, but the weird thing is he probably does the most damage. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, he
cuts
does
the eardrums, takes out the control box. So now the gamma aliens can't even talk to Wangmagwi anymore. It's so crazy.
Yeah, he does a lot, and he starts to set things in motion. But ultimately, the way they defeat the monster is
the aliens give up.
They just yep. They're like,
they're like, wait, they're gonna nuke him? We can't have that. We want their planet. We're more concerned about nuclear pollution than the humans. Maybe they're all psycho.
Yeah, it's a metaphor.
It's a metaphor.
No, so the aliens decide that since they don't want the planet to be contaminated by a nuclear strike against the monster, they decide to do two things. One, flee, and two, blow up Wangmagwi.
Yeah, apparently they have a self-destruct button.
They self-destruct the
they're just like, well, I guess we're done.
It's been a good run. he just kind of, it's been real, folks. and down they go. And
which, I mean, if they literally installed a kill switch in Wangmagwi, I feel sorry for Wangmagwi.
I know, as sentient or non-sentient as he might have been, they still,
as dumb as he was with his tongue hanging out.
God, they rigged me to explode.
Oh, they to explode. At least I got to see some boobies.
I will love him and pet him and call him George.
Oh, what's Squirrel doing? What's that? Oh, it's crawling on me. Oh, I don't have to worry about that. I can't hear. Oh,
that's probably exactly.
Why is there water sloshing around in my head?
I don't think that's water.
Why do I constantly smell urine right now?
Oh, it was right in his nose too. Oh. If only Kenny, quote unquote, Squirrel had chopped out all of his nose hairs, he might have not been able to smell it. But no, that monster was literally deaf, and he could only smell pee for the rest of his life. Let it sink in.
Well, is supposedly short life because he's apparently hanging out somewhere in Seoul right now.
I was gonna say, hopefully there isn't anything sloshing around in his noggin, if you catch me.
I don't know at this point, but apparently you can literally, I don't know, I should find out. I mean, he was on the island for a while. I should find out if they would, I don't know, tranquilize him and send technicians in there to clean out his head or something. Or perform surgery to fix the eardrum.
Somebody get a couple of Q-tips and a shop vac. clean out his nose. Oh my gosh. So do you know if the Wangmagwi that's running around it can't be the same one because he blew up. Is it a second one?
I don't know. You know how it works with kaiju. Sometimes they miraculously resurrect. No one really stays dead.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how it works, but I know how it works because that's how it works.
That's how it works. You know
exactly.
I mean?
I don't ask questions anymore. The canon is out the window. I don't ask questions anymore. I just roll with it.
Yeah.
I just roll with it. It's good
stuff.
Just
deal with it at this point. Yeah.
I don't ask questions. I just enjoy the results.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The commentator said that he saw Squirrel as a symbol of the infantile South Korea after the war.
There's a lot that has been read into this movie from this commentary.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a few more highlights of this. Yes. And then we'll talk about, we've talked about the anticlimax already. So yeah. So, which he likened to War of the Worlds. And I'm like, no, I mean, but he likened it to War of the Worlds. I'm like,
because the alien dies?
I don't think it has quite the same point and impact. Because the whole point of the Martians dying in War of the Worlds from the common cold was that the smallest thing on the planet took out the biggest threat it ever faced. When mankind threw everything they had at it.
If they did, yeah. There's a very
That's
clear.
the point.
It's a clear point.
It's like it's either you can either read it as this naturalistic, the tiniest thing in the world, save the world, or you can look at it as divine intervention, because that's how it's written in the novel.
Basically, I mean, that's literally
it's kind
in the
of strange
prose.
in that regard if you know anything about H.G. Wells. But anyway, he also said that squirrel's symbol. I said a squirrel symbolizes something that is brave, big, and fast,
and smells of ammonia, probably.
No, like the actual animal is what I'm talking about.
No, well, I mean, maybe real squirrels smell like ammonia too. I don't know. I don't sniff squirrels that often, Marchand.
Yeah.
What do you want? He
also points out that the government, like the military and the police, are incompetent and can't control the monster or the panicked people. So apparently that's the Shin Godzilla commentary before Shin Godzilla.
Let no pea fall on the innocent. There it is. You're welcome.
Yeah, all the other ones that I have highlighted, we've already talked about. Oh, wait, no. He also points out you never see a U.S. flag in this, even though they're supposed to help out in stuff like this. And there's no Western actors, no help from Americans.
Nope.
They talk about nukes, but South Korea has no nukes. But apparently they kind of wish they had nukes, but that's probably because of their neighbors to the north.
Yeah. I mean,
and
maybe by
they're certainly more open to having nukes than, say, their neighbors to the east.
Oh, geopolitical commentary in kaiju films. Is there nothing you can't cover?
Yeah.
Truly.
And he theorizes that King Kong was getting name dropped all the time because Korea had just started importing American films.
That makes sense because King Kong would have made sense over there at that point.
And he described, I didn't highlight this one, but I'll bring it up. He described the Wangmagwi suit as a roughed up diving suit.
That is a good comparison.
My word.
This movie.
My word.
What a funky movie.
It's something. If nothing else, if you haven't seen this movie yet, you can still buy it from SRS. Is it available to stream now?
Oh, not sure. I know that it will eventually. The Blu-ray is still available because they made more of these than they typically do because they knew it was going to be big. If you're a weirdo like me who likes VHS tapes, then I think there might be a few of those left. Maybe not. But it's definitely going to get a mass market DVD.
Oh, I think I've seen a picture of it, so it's coming.
That'll be on Amazon, and you'll probably be able to pick it up at Walmart for like $8 or $9,
which is weird, And I think a lot of most SRS titles end up on Tubi.
Yes, it'll probably be on Tubi eventually if it's not there. I would recommend just go buy the darn thing on disc because this is a piece of history. You like if they only put it on streaming, that would have stunk because then they could just yoink it at any time. But no.
Looking at you, Amazon Prime with Outer Man.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. DVD when, please? I don't know when it's.
Hey, Ron! Pick that one up.
You know what?
I know that director is one of your darlings.
Kawasaki. Dun, 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 dun. Let's do it. Anyway, I want to see that. But that is neither here nor there. Wangmagwi deserves to be owned. Get it on Blu-ray. Get it on DVD later when it comes out. Just this is one that I think that every kaiju fan should own a copy of. Have it in your collection. We never thought we'd ever get to see it.
Yeah.
Like that is worth having.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And it might be wilder than it is good.
I would agree with that. This is not a masterpiece. I mean,
it's definitely not perfect. It's certainly memorable.
It makes up for any shortcomings in its quality with being entertainingly bizarre and bizarrely entertaining.
Yeah,
there you go.
There's sure. It's because I will say this. I think it's wilder than not Wangmagwi. I think it's wilder than Yongary.
Both movies definitely have children covered in poop.
Let's assume that was oil.
No, that kid. No. Well, I mean, okay, sure, whatever. But
is that a refinery? Let's assume it was oil.
Let's just assume he was in a sewer. There's no way that wasn't poop. I'm done saying the word.
Let's assume Squirrel was dirt,
sure.
Grime.
But then there's the poop man. So both movies definitely have people with poop on them.
Yes.
I'm done saying the word poop on your episode.
Yeah, you need to stop it. Yeah, the word of the day.
No, please don't. I'm done.
Yeah, we're done. We're done. But I'm just saying, it's certainly worth seeing once. I would add it to your collection because it is a piece of history. But like I said for Yongary, the history might be more interesting than the movie. Although, like I said, the movie's wild.
It's a fun ride.
It is definitely a fun ride. I think the way I put it in Yongary was that its historical significance outweighs its artistic merits. Because there's a lot of interesting stuff going around Yongary. And there's a lot of interesting stuff that went on around this movie. But it's no masterpiece.
But it's a lot of fun.
But it is a lot of fun. As much as I railed against Squirrel King of the Kennys, I did that all in good fun just because I was not prepared for that child.
My first thought after seeing this is how I know we've been friends too long, as I saw this movie and my first thought was Nate's brain cannot handle this. It might be medically unsafe for him to watch this movie.
And you didn't warn me.
No, I didn't want to spoil it. Like,
you shouldn't spoil it.
I didn't want to spoil it for you. I'm glad you got to see it. You and Jimmy got to see it unspoiled.
Yeah, I'm just I'm telling you, man. I know you have Kenny conferences. Do you let him come? The last time you did, it didn't end well. Got it.
Ooh, was it number 1 or number 2? Never mind. I don't want to know.
Yeah, we don't want to know. We don't want to know. You know what? Let's wrap the show up, okay? Let's just wrap the show.
Let's do that for sure.
Yeah. All right, that was fun, but we went a little longer than I expected, Danny. So we need to wrap some things up with, what are we doing?
The Patreon shout out. My 3 least favorite people, me, myself, and I.
Eli Harris.
Bex from Redeemed Otaku.
Damon Noise.
The Cellcast. Eric Anderson.
Ted Williams.
Winja the Ninja.
Brad Batman Edelman.
Christopher Reiner.
The Indiscreet One. I hope I said that right. Jay Cambrick. Edwin Gonzalez. Matt Walsh. But not that Matt Walsh. Jonathan Cartwright. Robert Kidd. Leon Campbell. Michael Watson. Tofu Fury!
So much adrenaline! Whoa!
Why don't we help Squirrel fight Wangmagwi now?
We're ready to we're gonna go. We're gonna do that, right? Like,
yes.
We're gonna go get him.
Yeah, we'll do that here momentarily. But first, we got to finish wrapping things up. But after screaming Tofu Fury, I'll tap into my inner Squirrel right now.
Never say that again in front of me.
No,
I get what you were trying to say.
That is true.
This is true. All right. What kind of house?
Note to self: decaf might be in order. Anyway,
I've been waiting forever to hear you say that, Marchand. I have. It's been a long time coming.
And now, Danny, I need to let everybody know what our next couple episodes are going to be. So, first off, interrupting here really quick because thanks to all of these impromptu episodes, we've had a lot this month. March has been the month of impromptu episodes. I need to promote another impromptu episode one last time, as the megas would say. Yeah. Come on. Yep. Godzilla Cross Kong, X Kong, Godzilla and Kong, whatever. The new Empire is dropping very, very soon as the live version of this is being broadcast. and it's going to be the Kaiju event of the year. I've got a good feeling about this, and I'm going to have not one, but two guests on for this because, of course, you have to. It's the Monsterverse. It's a tentpole release. You can't get around that. I will be having on, for the first time, Donnie Winter of Growing Up with Godzilla fame, among other things, and a mystery guest. And hopefully things will work out so that I can have said mystery guest on. And now, in light of that, now back to the rest of the episode. We're getting back to, well, I guess technically we were still doing this theme here because
every country has a monster they're afraid of in their nation.
Every monster has a country, yeah, a station they call their home.
And now we're getting back to that main series, the Monster Island World Tour. This bonus episode was technically part of that. We're going to still be in Seoul, South Korea, and we're going to be talking about a movie that I would dare call, yes, I would dare call a D-make. A D-make. And I will be bringing on a guest who would actually insist, Danny, that Koreans cannot be kaiju.
Well, I wonder who you could be talking about.
Michael. No, I'm kidding. Mr. Elijah Thomas of Kaiju Conversation. And he will be making a valiant defense of 1999/2001's, and there's a reason for that, Reptilian.
An episode that I actually threatened his life over so that I could be on that episode. And he still said no. He still said he wanted to do it.
Well, it's because he knows more about it than anybody who didn't work on the movie should know, and unironically loves it. And I love it. And I need to but you're unironically?
Yeah, I enjoy it. I think it's dumb.
Wow, you are one of two people in the world.
Yep, I'm a simple man. Okay, I'm a simple man. I sometimes my choice in cinema is a little questionable, but you know what? Big ugly CGI punch monster, other punch monster it's you're my creation. It's funny. It's it's dumb and I enjoy it. And you can sue me if you please. You will
I have
not
better
win.
things to sue people over. And then we're going to Godzilla Redux to talk about an only slightly less derided movie.
Ooh, a lot of face palm.
You want to guess?
Man, I wonder what we could be talking about here. I'm gonna go with the obscure 1954 creature feature Gojira, directed by Terry Morse. Okay, whatever.
Ironically, I had Elijah on for that episode.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. No, All Monsters Attack, aka Godzilla's Revenge.
There it is. One of again, a movie that gets dunked on that I adore.
But now it's popular to reevaluate it.
Finally.
So so that must drive the kaiju hipsters crazy, because before it was like, I actually like that movie and the rest of you plebes hate it. And now suddenly everyone is starting to love it and is like, I no longer love this movie.
Yeah, everybody's going to flip-flop because the other half is coming. Like, the scale has to be balanced between love and hate, apparently, for this.
Yeah, I guess. But
whatever.
But I'm going to have a little bit of a special episode with that one, because I will have not one but two guests who are very excited to be on this episode together. Neil Reeby and, yes, John LeMay.
Nice pairing.
Who is apparently my new man crush. Shut the frick up, Jimmy.
Listen, you said it on the podcast, which means it's canon. Okay, it's a thing.
I'm denying it is what I'm doing. He thought it was Jet for the while, and I'm like, man crush, he's a freaking robot. I've seen that Futurama episode. We're not going there.
boy. You know, anyway, we're not going there.
Anyway, we got to get to a different segment now. A very important one.
Yes.
Well, I have to say the thing now, don't I? Because apparently it is now one of my most well-known catchphrases. I did not intend it to be a catchphrase.
I can't do it until you say it.
Shameless self-promotion!
There it is. There it is. There it is.
So yes, check out my author website, nathanjsmarchand.com, and The Power Trip, and Henshin Men. Boom.
There you go. I've been on here before. If you know my weird face and my weird voice, then you probably know that I... Don't look at me like that, Nate. You know it's true. You know that I am the creator and author of the Godzilla Novelization Project, which is an ongoing creative endeavor to exactly what you would think from the title, novelize all the Godzilla films. If that sounds like your jam, head to GodzillaNovelizationProject.com to check out the books. I publish them serialized, one chapter at a time. And you'll also find short stories that I've written that adapt certain elements and corners of the universe, and blogs and timelines and all that cool stuff. If you want to follow along with this super insane long form project and cheer me on and listen to some really bad kaiju puns and like all kinds of silly things that involve me being a dork, definitely check me out on social media. And on Twitter, just type in Godzilla Novelization Project on Twitter and Facebook. You will find me. If you really like what you read, you can head to Patreon and support me on there and get access to behind the scenes stuff and a podcast, all that good stuff. If you want to hear me pontificate on more kaiju-related things, definitely listen to the other 900 episodes of this show I've been on.
Yeah, but you've been on a gazillion podcasts.
I've been on.
You're very popular with podcasters.
I guess so. I remain complete, and I'm not like all sarcasm put aside here. I remain completely and utterly humbled and flattered by that. It's really, really cool.
Okay. And I should also mention, we didn't do listener feedback this episode just to save some time, but if you want to be heard on the show, leave comments on the YouTube editions or email us at monsterislandfilmvault@gmail.com, and the rest of our contact information will be in the credits. You should always listen to the credits. And if you want to get references or anything for the show, check the show notes on the website so you can get a full list of all the crazy sources we use for this episode. Sometimes it's Danny's brain.
I have been credited as a source before.
Yeah, yes, you have, your brain. And definitely join MIFV Max on Patreon to get shout outs like we did just a few minutes ago.
Yes. If you want us to yell your name incoherently for a few minutes, then that's
just one of the perks you get.
Oh, there are a lot of other perks, and they're all very good, which is why I am a patron.
That's why you were on the list. Anyway.
Yes.
All right. Now we have a little bit of fun to do now. Hopefully this will be less traumatizing than when we had to deal with the big red spider in Hong Kong.
Yeah. Do you mind if I tag along here? I mean,
that should be fine. That should be fine. All right.
I don't want to just invite myself.
Jimmy, cue the... Wait, what? A press release? Okay, give it to me here. Okay, let me see. What do we got here? Okay, let me see. I'm glad you brought the printer along. That's nice.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, really? I'm surprised and yet not.
You want to spill the beans, Marchand, for those of us who can't read from this side of the robot?
We're the mop-up crew. Apparently... Squirrel decided to deal with Wangmagwi himself.
He just what isn't he? Isn't he like 60 now or something?
Somewhere in that range. Yeah, 60-something adventurer. He decided that he dealt with Wangmagwi once before, and he decided to do it again. And he's the big dang hero right now because he did that. Oh. I'm not going to explain how he took Wangmagwi out because I don't think it's very PG. So
and we're the mop-up crew.
Yeah, we're just basically going to call Ricky, tell him to send the drones to these coordinates, and we're done.
All right, I'll go get the sawdust, I guess.
Dang it. Well. It's a relief, no pun intended, in one way, and a little disappointing in another. Dang it.
And on that note...
Yeah, Jimmy, play the credits. Thank you for listening to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast produced and hosted by Nate Marchand. Our executive producer is Damon Noyes. If you want to be heard on the show, we'd love to hear from you, so email us at monsterislandfilmvault@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. You can also follow Jimmy from NASA on Twitter and our many colorful characters using the links in the show notes, which are on our website, monsterislandfilmvault.com. Don't forget to join our official Facebook group and Discord server, The Markalite Lounge. Our podcast logo was designed by Rebecca Hudgens. Follow her on Twitter and Instagram at super_R_illustrations. Sound effects sourced from freesound.org and created by JP Gant. Our theme song is Wanderer on the Offensive, live edit by B33J, Sarax, Juan Madrano, and Nonsensical Lexus, which is a remix of Counterattack and The Opened Way by Kowatani from Shadow of the Colossus. Additional music includes Every Country Has a Monster, performed by Jonah Ray, and Chant My Name, a cover by Second Archive of the song by Masaki Endo. All film and audio clips belong to the respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended or implied. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and/or Podchaser to spread the word about the show. You can even support us by joining MIFV Max on Patreon. MIFV is a Moonlighting Ninjas media production and a proud member of Pod Nation. Sayonara!